Kind of see all those layers in there from the folding we did. Yo, what up, Hammies? It's your boy BP Ham, and we're back for another episode of Amateur Baker Attempts to Make Professional Chef Recipes. On today's episode, we have another Claire Saffitz dessert person recipe called KOUIGN AMMAN. And it sounds fancy because it is fancy. This is a laminated dough, which means it's dough, butter, and it's gonna puff up in the oven and create a delicious French pastry. And they say this is the tip of the top French pastry, so I'm really excited to make it. But it is a very long process, 7 hours, so let's get started. For this recipe, there's not very many ingredients, but you're gonna need some sugar, flour, kosher salt, active dry yeast, unsalted butter, and then some salted European butter. This is a yeast-based dough that's gonna have to rise, so we're gonna start with some yeast into a big bowl. And then you're gonna need some water. You're gonna want your water to be around 100, 110 degrees. And I used a microwave and a thermopan to make sure that it was that temperature, but you could boil it on the stove or use a mixture of hot and cold water. So we're gonna pour that in and we're gonna just mix it around a little bit and then let that sit for about 5 minutes until the yeast is activated. About 5 minutes later, you're gonna see that it bubbles and foams up a little, and that's how you know your yeast is alive and activated. And then we're gonna add in the rest of the ingredients. To this mixture, we're gonna add in flour, sugar, salt, and room temperature water. And then we're gonna get a wooden spatula and mix this together. Just mix that lightly until you get shaggy pieces, but it's all kind of incorporated. Bring that dough together. Make sure you got clean hands. Wash my hands with soap, you know, COVID. So now that it's slightly come together, we're gonna put this onto a clean work surface. And then we're gonna knead this dough for 10 to 12 minutes until it's smooth. So I just fold it over itself. All right, so we kneaded this for about 10 to 12 minutes and it's become pretty smooth. I'm not exactly sure the exact consistency. I never made it, but it's pretty smooth. So we're gonna form this into a smooth ball. We got a smooth ball here, smooth-ish. And then we're going to put this into so I accidentally forgot to put the butter into the last mixture. So that's why I was like looking a little dry. So we're gonna start over. I got the yeast here again, and we're gonna add in some water, flour, salt, sugar, and then the butter. Don't forget the butter. And then we're gonna mix it again with the wooden spoon. And this time you can see the dough's a lot more hydrated. It's not as dry. And then once it gets to the shaggy pieces, as you can see here, we'll switch over to our hands and get that all clumped up together. And the texture is a lot smoother than it was earlier. We're gonna toss this over onto our board and then just knead it again for 10 to 12 minutes. And yeah, you can feel it. It's a lot more smooth, a lot more soft. So hopefully this is right. And with that butter, it's a tad stickier. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of flour to the board to avoid any sticking. Definitely getting my workout in for today. And as we're kneading, it's getting a little bit softer and softer, less sticky, more smooth. So do this for about 10 to 12 minutes. It's kind of fun because you can bang it against the table sometimes, get your anger out. And to get more leverage, use the palms of your hands. Get in there and use your body weight. So it's been about 10 minutes later. You can see the dough is nice and soft. So we're gonna form it into a ball. Just roll it around itself. And then we're gonna place it into a lightly floured bowl. Flour the top. Cover it with a damp towel, and we're gonna let this rise for an hour to an hour and a half until it doubles in size. So as we said, this is a laminated dough, so we're gonna need to create a butter block that we can sandwich in between the dough so that when we fold it over, it creates those layers of dough, and butter. So we got some European butter here, salted, and we're gonna place a parchment paper down, and then we're gonna put these butter chunks on this. And you want your butter to be cold. Get another sheet of parchment, put it on top, and then we're just gonna get a rolling pin and bang it out into a flat surface. And keeping the butter cold allows it to, you know, spread out without getting sticky. Using the parchment keeps it in a nice area. So now we're gonna get this into about a 7-inch square. somehow. Maybe I should have tapped it out better. So we're roughly in a 7-inch square. We're gonna fold in the parchment like a little present. And then we're just gonna get the rolling pin and roll it out into a 1/4 inch, because we want a nice even layer. And wrapping it will keep it in this 7-inch square. So once you got that wrapped up, it's okay if it's not perfect, but as long as it's in an even square, we're gonna put that back into the fridge to let it harden back up. It's been a little bit over an hour. Our dough has risen. So the dough has risen. As you can see, it's nice and smooth, doubled in size. We're gonna knock the air out and we're gonna press it in a little just to get some of that air out. And then we're gonna turn this onto a medium-sized lined baking sheet. And then we're gonna form this into a square shape. It doesn't need to have any specific dimensions because we're gonna roll it out in a bit, but just form this into a squarish shape. And then we're gonna put this into the freezer for 10 minutes so that it chills. Now we got our chilled butter block from the fridge. We're gonna unwrap one corner. And with the butter, you gotta work quickly because you don't want it to melt. We're gonna place that. This is not correct. So you just want to make sure your square is bigger than your butter block, because we're going to wrap that block around with the dough. So now we're going to get the dough from the fridge, and then we're going to place it diamond side. We're going to place it so it's like a diamond onto this square, and then peel off that top edge. And we're just going to bring each corner in like you're wrapping the present and just sealing in those sides. So we're just wrapping that around and sealing that butter block in. Then we're gonna dust this with some flour, dust the underside with some flour, and then we're gonna beat this out. And then we're gonna roll this out into a 20-ish by 7-inch sheet. So I just beat it out a little bit to get some of that length. Roll it out to get it to 20 inches. And you really wanna just try to keep that 7-inch diameter because we're gonna be folding this over. Try to roll out from the center so that the dough is even. And while you're rolling, just keep shaping it so that it stays in between the same width. As you can see, it kind of sealed in the bottom, and as you keep rolling it, it'll seal in those edges that we made before. The most important thing is that this is an even layer. All right, so this is where we're gonna do the folding technique. So we're gonna do this twice. You're gonna get the short edge here, and you're gonna fold this into thirds like a book, and fold that last one over. And then we're gonna do a 90-degree turn. So we're gonna turn it 90 degrees, and then we're gonna add a little bit more flour to the bottom and the top, and then we're gonna do the same rolling out technique. Beat it again and roll that out. Again, working as quickly as you can, as you want that butter to stay cold. And if your dough gets too sticky and that butter is melting, you can always throw it back into the fridge. So now we're gonna fold it up like we did before for the last time, and then we're gonna chill it again. We'll do the short edges in, and then the other one right over it. We're gonna wrap this in plastic wrap. So just wrap that up. And then we're gonna put this into the fridge. So we got that dough nicely wrapped up. We're gonna put it in the freezer for 10 minutes and then transfer it to the fridge to cool the rest of the way. So it's been 10 minutes, we transferred that dough to the fridge. Normally you would rest it for about an hour and then do the final 2 turns, but since it's already 1 a.m. here, we're gonna rest it overnight and do the 2 turns tomorrow. So we'll see you then. We're back with day 2. I messed up last night and I forgot to put this in the fridge. So in the morning, I just transferred it from the freezer to the fridge. So we'll see how it goes and we hope it works out. We're just gonna unwrap this that I put on too tightly. Lightly flour your work surface. Then we're gonna put that on. We're just going to roll it out again. So this is gonna be the second 2 turns. And then we're gonna roll it out. From here, we're gonna sprinkle it with a couple tablespoons of sugar. Sprinkle that on there. Spread that around. One side in, and the other side on top. You wanna work quickly because the dough is melting or softening. And you want that butter to stay cold. Make sure you flour it if it gets too sticky. And once you put that sugar in, it's gonna start ripping a little easier, so just put flour on there. One more sprinkling of sugar, so a couple tablespoons of sugar. And now we're gonna fold it over one more time. So just like a book. We're gonna wrap this, put it in the freezer for 10 minutes, and not forget to put it in the fridge after that for 1 hour. So our dough's in the fridge, and now we gotta line our pan to make the KOUIGN AMMAN. So we got a muffin tin here, and what I did is cut some parchment into 5-inch strips and like 1/4 inch. It doesn't really matter. So this is just gonna help lift out that end pastry. And we got some butter. We're gonna lightly butter the tin and then put some sugar in the bottom of each. So this is just some cooled melted butter. Going to just rub that around each one of these. We all like some butter, you know, extra fat. We got all that buttered. We're gonna put in a little sheet into each one of these so that the sides stick up. So we got those lined, and we're just gonna go back over it with a little butter to get that other side of the parchment. And now we're just gonna put a generous amount of sugar at the bottom of each of these tins. I'm just gonna line it around the pan, get all that buttery goodness. We got this all lined up, and we're going to set it aside while our dough finishes cooling. So our dough is chilled for about an hour. We're gonna lightly flour our cutting board, and we're gonna roll this out into an 18 by 12 rectangle. It's gonna take some strength to get it all out, but just take your time. Well, not really, because you got to work quickly, but it'll get there. So just continue adding flour if it's too sticky. So we're about there. We're gonna sugar both sides generously. And then you're gonna press in the sugar just so it adheres a little bit. And make sure to also get the underside. All right, so we're gonna cut this into a square. And we're gonna try to get 24 pieces out of this. So we're gonna do 4 by 6. So we're gonna go in half. And then do 3s. And then halfway down the center. That was not that center. And then one more here. And then one more here. You can kind of see all those layers in there from the folding we did. We got our muffin tin, and then we got our dough here. We're gonna take a square, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna fold in the top layers until you get this little looking shape here. I don't know what to call this. Put that into our muffin tin. So just fold up each side, have them touch, fold the corner in, fold this other corner in, pinch that in, put it into the tray. Work quickly because the dough gets kind of soft. We're going to let these sit for 30 to 35 minutes while we preheat our oven to 400 degrees. So we're gonna put these into the oven at 400 degrees, and then right when we put them in, we're gonna toss the temperature down to 350. So those are gonna bake for about 25 minutes, and then we're just gonna flip them halfway in between. Just took these out of the oven, and they look so good. So we're just gonna pull these tabs up, and then it comes right out. Look at that. All right, so we got them out the oven. As you can see, there's not as many as I baked because my roommates had at them and they said they were really good. So super excited to try it. I may have overbaked it a little, but it did give it a good crust here. Oh, it's so flaky. Oh no. Oh, look at those layers. Oh, it's so sweet. Oh, they're so good. Wow, they're so good, so flaky. All those layers puffed up really nicely. A nice coating of sugar. It may have been a lot of work, and I thought I'd mess up a few times, but they turned out really good. Definitely will be making them again. Actually, my roommate already requested that I make them again. I'm like, we still have more, and he's like, it's not enough. So definitely a recipe for the books. It was kind of fun to make, a little stressful. So out of all the recipes so far, this is probably in the top 2, maybe even the top. Definitely try these out because they are really, really, really good. And how did I do to the original? I mean, maybe a little smaller, but looks pretty similar. So I'm gonna give myself a pat on the back for that one. If you enjoyed this episode and watching me make these KOUIGN Ammans, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and comment below on what you want me to cook or bake next. Until next time, peace.